Hey everyone, this is what is it, October 14th? This is Cindy, and it's the class where the rubber meets the road, where we take a look at A Course in Miracles and see how we can use it in our day-to-day life. Yeah. I got a song, so I'm gonna put things on pause. The song is Charles Holt singing Home. And it was so very interesting, because when I sat um, for today's topic, the first thing that arose was home. This idea of home, what is it? And then I I put in a Google search. I put in a search in my Kindle version of A Course. There's a lot of that word. It's like 400 times the word home shows up. But somehow I was pulled to um, Miracle Principle number 48, which is an interesting thing in and of itself, since a very big part of it talks about fantasy and illusion and sex and all sorts of things. Um, and I reach out to Rana going, we're doing miracle principle number 48. And then I sat with it some more, and there's one particular part, which isn't specifically about home, but maybe it is. Um, but and Richard, I see you there. Happy Monday, Sandra, and everyone else, and Andrew. Yeah. Let's play the song, and then we'll talk about where my attention went. Miracle Principle number 48. Rana's going to play the song. I'm going to remember to hit pause. Barbie's going to remind us to hit record again. So here we go. Before Barbie reminds me. All right. So I didn't write the specific someone if it comes up exactly what it says in Miracle Principle number 48. But essentially, it states that until we're home, we get to use time and the miracle and the body as tools as we choose to make our way home. And it's really our choice, right? So it's actually the end of Miracle Principle number 48. Let me um couple notes. No, we don't even need any knowledge, right? Unless we believe we need it. Separation from God is the only lack you ever really need to correct. And the physical world right now exists only because you can use it to correct your unbelief, which placed you in it originally. Every aspect of fear proceeds from upside down perception. And in Miracle Principle number 48, at the very end, we see three choices. It says the truly creative devote their efforts to correcting this. For me, that means working with the Holy Spirit on forgiveness. So whenever I see aspects of a world out there, something that creates a contraction, judgment, I could use the principles of the body, the world, miracles, time to correct the misperception. That's what the truly creative does. The neurotic devotes his time to compromise. And I've been watching that a lot here, keeping 2 feet in both worlds. The yeah buts. Yes, I believe God is real, but how am I going to pay the bills next month? It's an interesting place to be, because while we're in the world, the bills still need to be paid. Um, but it does kind of create a sense of insanity, doesn't it? And then the psychotic tries to escape by establishing the truth of his own errors. Those are the three choices that I sense to bring to this group in this conversation. So choice number one, the choice that I will for with all my being, is to use the miracle, use this body, use the sense of time to correct the error of separation. Not in any kind of insane, crazy, like you're wrong and I'm right kind of way, but just every time I see the pain of the sense of judgment, when I notice it, to work with the Holy Spirit to correct it. The second, which is the one that's creating the most level of confusion here, so it doesn't, is the neurotic who has his foot in both worlds. And in all honesty, not that I'm looking for anyone to correct that here, but I sense that that's a lot of where the work is here right now. And it's not in the not being in the world, because I am in the world and flowing in the world. It's more like watching the wavering between placing my trust in the separated world and then noticing how much that hurts and coming back and seeing what happens when I make space for the miracle, and the wavering back and forth and the sense of neurotic. The neurotic is what Jesus calls it in miracle principle number 48. And then the psychotic just believes the world is real and works very, 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 very hard. Somehow thinking about Hitler. I don't know, maybe because I'm spending so much time with Joel Goldsmith. But the world of Nazi Germany is a really um, latent example for me in my space of believing that Jews aren't real people and blacks aren't real people and homosexuals aren't, and how the ego world can convince itself of what is right and what is wrong, and has no space really uh, for another way of viewing. So what I wanted to just bring here, because we're here, which means that it's on our heart to allow for the miracle, right? And it's on our heart to rise in consciousness, hang, and know that we rise together more effectively than we do apart. So says our buddy, Dr. Hawkins. To just put it to us, how can we work together to deepen into our commitment to choose to use all sense of chaos and pain and in a world out there that needs to be corrected or changed in some way so I could be okay in here, to allow for the miracle, to use these tools that we've been given while we're still living in the separate world, i.e. the body and time and the miracle. And before I go any further, Andrew, it's nice to see that you haven't had to build an ark and float away. I'm wondering how your world looks.
Here, Everything is okay here in the eastern part of Orlando. The storm did pass over us, but we got rain and wind, which wasn't really strong enough to do any damage. We never lost power. I know a lot of people were much less fortunate than us, but being in the central part of the state, we're where the coastal people evacuate to, so they come here for safety. Some homes do get damaged, but we didn't get damaged. We're okay. Thank you for your concern. Uh, when you're ready, I do have some
Oh,
comment.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
This chaotic world will never be able to make sense of, because that's the definition of chaos, pretty much. I think it's can't make sense of it. What we're tasked with is course practitioners is to see all the chaos and not be affected by it, and look through it, and just see the love that's beyond it, the love that created life itself. We all are part of the same love that creates life, and that's what our practice has to be. That's I'm sure that's what we're all doing, but it you know it doesn't change. It doesn't change what the eyes see and what the body sees and what the world experiences. We just have to realize that none of it is real, and to judge it makes it real. So I was just reading a chapter on chaos earlier this morning, and there was just one sentence that said, "There is no right or wrong. There's the world is nothing at all. Everything is just thought." So uh, that's that's how we have to live. I know it still seems real, and I can't make that. I can't change that, but that's my comment. Thank you.
It's the practice, though, right? We can't change it, but somehow it's becoming less and less transparent the more I immerse myself in this work. Um, One of the things that I really realized yesterday, and I was talking to Ron about it this morning, a lot of people come to Ahihi and they're like, "Oh my God, this is where I belong," and they uproot and they go back and they shut down and they move here sooner or later. As beautiful as this place is, um, my home is in my heart. It doesn't have a physical location. It's this work. It's the diets I do, and it's this work, and I'm feeling really, really, really grateful that at the moment I don't feel attached. My apartment or even my cat, I feel just more focused on being present where I am. And it's a really cool thing. The reminder that home is in God, not in anything that has form. Amy, would you like to share what you just wrote in the chat and whatever else is coming from that? Or
Sure. I may freeze, so forgive me if I do. That's actually from the Guy Finley talk for this week, which I found really interesting.
there she is. Oh, were you? Yep. If you turn your video off, Amy, we might be able to continue to hear you.
I just I just kept I kept listening to it. The I am inseparable from the awareness, from whatever is in my awareness now. You could just take out the dimension into which my awareness has come. But that does relate, because what I am experiencing is unlimited awareness of unlimited experience. So I don't have any problem with that. And if I have a problem with it, then I'm going to make that real. The miracle is living from the awareness that I am not separate from anything that's in my awareness, and that I'm not the personal mind that wants to change it. And I will give a direct example of this. I have been working, quote unquote. That is a word that implies that I am the doer. I have been working for 2 days to try to resolve a $1,200 bill from a hospital. And I realized that when I went to the hospital, I was in judgment about it because it's a Catholic hospital. And we walked along the hallway, and there were pictures of priests and nuns, and I was in resistance to it. And so I have tried and tried to resolve this billing issue, telling myself, this hospital just can't get its shit together, right? Because it's a Catholic hospital and it's frigged up. And finally, I realized, Amy, you have made this problem for yourself. You sat in judgment in August, and all this is your judgment coming back to inform you. Are you going to realize it or not? And once I realized it, I was like, oh, what, don't need to judge myself, don't need to do anything with it, just now allow it, now that I have seen it, that was the miracle, allow it to unfold in a new way, in whatever way it unfolds. Just because I realize it doesn't mean it will not be a problem for me. I don't need to have that expectation. Just let it unfold in the new way with this new realization. And so that's what I'm doing. That's where I am. And that's the miracle. But I don't need to work at anything. I don't need to work at solving the problem. It's what I need to do is get out of the way and stop placing barriers in front of the awareness of love's presence, which is what I did when I judged the hospital. So, whoopee, good for me. Good to know that. These are just these little teeny things, They're nothing, but they arise as invitations to see the truth.
Sounds like a great example of moving from that second choice that Jesus gave us in Miracle Principle 48, but both worlds, being a student, but using my own power as an individual, to moving back to the first and getting real creative and allowing the miracle principle and the shifting and allowing the correction to be healing. Thank you. I'm glad you're finding Guy Finley so interesting. I haven't listened to him yet. He's part of my past that all of a sudden popped up in my present. So,
I can't wait to talk
so
to
are you
him.
going to be there? Because I thought you were away on Thursday.
I'm going to leave Thursday night, so I will
Oh,
be there.
okay. Very, very good. Awesome. Sandra,
Good morning.
good morning.
I have a question for Amy about did you say that comes from Finley?
Guy Finley.
Yeah.
It's the video for this Thursday's
Okay,
Finding Truth Everywhere.
okay. So here's my question. The miracle is living this from the awareness I am and not from the chaos of the personal mind. This has been an inquiry a self-inquiry I have been doing. And I recognize the from the awareness and from the personal mind, but more and more that's become integrated. Could you speak to that? Do you know what I'm asking? There aren't two different places to come from.
No, there aren't. I'm not sure I understand your question. Could you ask it again?
That's the problem. I'm not sure I understand my question either.
Okay.
What I'm saying, what's happening is I was for many years on this path, really recognizing the two separate places that I came from, seeing that very clearly. But now I'm not, it's merging. And the separate self, the personal mind that is separate, isn't real. So therefore, I'm seeing that, I'm almost seeing that consciousness is doing all of it. Feels like it's all being done by one thing, not two things.
So the way that Guy describes the personal mind is like a shadow on the wall of the cave. He uses Plato's cave, and so the personal mind is chaotic. It's a shadow. It's without any substance in truth.
Is it a veiled? Is it the veil that comes down, like in Spyro when he says you forget that you're not the character, you forget you're not King Lear? Is that what it's saying?
What he's saying is consciousness is always present.
Yes.
Consciousness is always the truth and the only reality. There is no other reality. But consciousness, in its desire to have, in its infinite ability to create for itself infinite experiences, desires to experience limitation or a personal mind. It is always consciousness. It is never the limitation.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard's here. He's gonna tell us he loves us.
Hey
Maybe he's not.
everybody, I love you all. And right off the get-go, great discussion. I've been redefining my initial beliefs in the Course in Miracles in the last couple of months. So, how I perceive what we're all talking about was the world is an illusory world, not real. But it represents the force split in the mind that belief is separated from its source. The force split says, part of the mind says I'm innocent, I'm the innocent victim, and the other mind says I'm the victimizer. Because the mind is full of sin, guilt, and fear. And what the mind is, it's projected that out and created the world, the tiny mad idea kind of thing. So the world we think we experience is an illusory world that represents projection by the split mind to not remember what it is in reality. And what it is in reality is the memory of oneness that everything is. And in the oneness, when we realize we're in the wrong mind, we come back to above the battleground where we can view the dream from a point of a witness or an observer. And then we unite again with the idea that all is one in the stillness, which is the reality of all that is. Now, once we come to this realization and we wake up in the morning, we're still in the dream, we're still experiencing the life as a separate self. And you go, what the WTF? What's going on here? I thought I crossed this bridge yesterday. And what we're really doing is we're observing the dream from the point of the observer. If you can be the observer of your life and realize your life is not real, then you can look at the dream figures in the dream and figure out, oh, there's not two. I'm one with everything. But I seem to be focused on one character in the dream most of the time. For me, that's Richard. And Richard has a conditioning of his mind that flavors his experience as a oneness, a oneness experiencing itself as Richard. And this should be one of those characters you seem to be experiencing. So the question for me is, how do I don't want to bring the light to the darkness. You can't do that. You can't change the world. The world is what it is. It's a representation of an inward condition. So it's chaos. So what can I do to manifest the truth of what I am? How do I bring the infinite, unconditional love that I am in truth to every thought, word, and deed of this character in a movie called Richard? And that's my focus right now. So I realize the world is crazy. Now, what has really helped me with this approach, and I only do this because every day I experience more peace, love, and joy in my experience, which is illusory. But that's my experience as an illusory figure. And one of the biggest things I had to do was agree to surrender my belief in the separate self. The separate self doesn't exist. I have to come to a point where I can accept that and my truth, be truthful to myself and say, you know, I'm still hung up on the world. I still believe this. I still believe that. And everything in the world we experience is an opportunity to go back and recognize we're trying to get rid of the sin, guilt, and fear we initially had when we believed that we separated from our source. But now that we no longer believe that, we believe we're one with our source. How do you manifest that in a chaotic world? You don't. You accept the world as it is, and you look at your dream figure in the dream, at least what I'm doing. I'm looking at Richard every day, and I'm going, okay, Richard, who's driving your illusion today? Is it the Holy Spirit or is it the ego? And most of the time, it's the Holy Spirit. But since I'm a work in progress, I slip into the ego thoughts and I get pissed off or I get angry at the hospital for the billing procedures, or my old conditioning comes out to the surface. And even though that happens occasionally, it happens less and less every day as long as I focus on the fact I'm observing the movie from the point of view of the theater, sitting in the theater watching the movie. I'm so engrossed in the movie, I actually think I'm one of the characters in the movie, and I'm not. So I love you all. Just felt I share that with him. I'm
Well,
working on it.
no, I thought it fabulous demonstration of the number one, of Miracle Principle 48. You just described it perfectly. It brought tears to my eyes. As long as we're feeling separate, then we get to use the miracle principle and the body and time for the Holy Spirit's purpose as often as we remember. And that's what we're doing here. And you just described it. And we had a fabulous time on Thursday talking about Keith Kavanaugh. We said, I love you a lot, Richard. You weren't there. I know you can't make it on Thursdays.
Yeah.
But
I
we-
haven't played the replay yet. I'll watch that today or tomorrow.
But I just wanted to personally say thank you.
Well,
Because-
thank you.
We got a lot out of it. Yeah. All right. Mr. Barnard.
Hello. First of all, I'm electronically challenged, but I can't seem to find. Did you send out an email today or a message?
This whole being in Mexico thing is screwing up my weekly email schedule. I was so happy to see you here. So, no, if you could just,
Because-
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna
Betty
say
said that
just-
Betty, oh, okay, never mind. But anyway, okay, because a lot of times things end up in junk and then I forget to look and so forth. Anyway, I was at one of my meetings this morning, and it was great. But anyway, I was talking in it was like another language because my mind is so out of it today. But anyway, what I was thinking about is, like the question is, what is? And the answer is, you're right. That's what, or yes, that's what's bouncing around in my brain. And it kind of reminds me of Abbott Costello and Who's on First. Because it's like, and then so I think Amy was talking about conscious is the only reality, and my mind needs to have limitations on reality, and that's because I don't think I could handle reality unless I limit it to what makes sense to me, and I can feel like I have some sort of control over it. And I don't know if that makes sense, or it's how I feel about things. Like, oh, there's too much information, or there's too much. Like I think Marianne Williams said, you can't handle. We're afraid of being unlimited, or words to that effect. So I think I'm afraid to be total consciousness, even though I want to believe that, and I, you know, it somewhere in my mind I believe that, but in another big piece of my mind I'm afraid of that. Does that make any sense?
Well, it's to be only consciousness requires ego death. And so ego fights again. Ego's not, it's just a thought form, right? But it's designed to that thought form or that programming is designed to preserve itself. And it uses all sorts of things, including terror and fear and everything else,
Yeah.
whenever it feels at risk. And so that to me is what you're describing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think maybe I'm breaking away from the ego mind, and it doesn't want to let go. And so, you know, because I have, you know, I know that just being conscious and just being what is, all those words to that effect that's where I want to be, and that's where I'm going to be, but it sure ain't easy for me.
One of the things
But
I've been sitting with is how uncomfortable that is, and working on beginning tomorrow. They've asked me to hold space for some satsangs, specifically on relationships here, and part of what I've really been sitting with is how to communicate this idea that this work doesn't necessarily feel good. A lot of people believe, and they even teach, that you're moving in the right direction because you're at peace. The truth is, that's not true. It's not true. Because we walk through all of these experiences where the ego or this thought, the sense of separation
mhm.
screams as we hold space for it, and that doesn't feel peaceful. There's a peaceful presence that we can practice holding while it's happening. But
Mhm.
Amy and Barbie both talk often about spending evenings, nighttime, practicing being at peace in health. It's part of the process, and it
Yeah.
feels like that's what you're describing.
Yeah, one of the things I've just thought about while we're talking is Betty, my wife, has been having some issues at our church and in board of directors meetings and all that sort of thing. And when she presents me with an issue or a problem, I can be there for her, and I can say what I believe, and it's without any fear, without any desire to have limitations. And and it's like good stuff. I mean, what I'm saying is like, wow, I said that, but it's so hard for me to help myself. It's easy for me to help others or be, you know, and that's interesting because, you know, like whatever happened to put your oxygen mask on first, but it's so interesting that I could do that, but also that leads me to believe there's hope for me yet. I mean, I'm still going to be able to pull it off. It's just going to take a while.
But you're also describing, David, why we have an open door.
Yeah.
Because we hold space for each other. That's just what happens. Rumor has it we all awaken as one. So this idea that some of us are ahead of others, it doesn't really make sense from the point of view of where I am right now, because we're all just like puzzle pieces in one mind. So it's,
Yeah.
you can't disconnect from each other is what, I don't know if that's the right word, but
Yeah.
other than I love you and I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, we're all members of the monkey group. So and so we just, it'll come to us all real, like you say, maybe one day it'll be a being and we're all there. All right, thank you for listening.
Thank you for being here. Richard.
I'm prompted to talk about consciousness. You may have heard me say this before, but consciousness has a different meaning in the Course in Miracles than other non-duality teachings. And consciousness in the Course in Miracles is separation from source. It's not the source itself. So, in other words, you have to be conscious of something. If you're conscious of something, you're a duality. So, the Course talks about stillness. You go to the stillness, which is the memory of the Holy Spirit or infinite oneness, and you rest in the stillness. I know I was confused when I first ran into other non-dual teachings. They would use consciousness as a representation of the stillness or the oneness of everything. And the Course does not use consciousness in that way. So I just wanted to add that. I found that helpful in my own progress.
Thank you. Rana and Diane Scott, for those of you who know Diane and I, are reading A Mind at Home with Itself, which I highly recommend. But there's a line in that book that says, without suffering, the Buddha doesn't exist. And that's the line that, the Buddha only gets created where there is suffering. Where there is no suffering, there's no need for the Buddha. And somehow, while you were sharing, that was the thought that arose. So I felt to add it. Amy, thank you, Rana.
Hey there. Thank you for this conversation. I wanted to explain this, or just raise this Guy Finley quote that I put in the chat. He said, we can look at it as it's the limited awareness of experience, or the unlimited experience of awareness. Right? Sometimes when I'm using Rupert Spira, I will say consciousness has given itself this limited awareness. It's given us the experience of limited awareness. But it can also be looked at as unlimited experience of awareness or consciousness with a big C. It's a subtle difference, but it adds depth for me just at this moment since hearing him say it. I'm awareness having unlimited experience. Each one of us is the unlimited experience of the single awareness. I don't want to over intellectualize this. It's just a feeling sense that it gave me, and I wanted to share it just to see if anyone else had any responses to it. That's all. It's no big deal. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm so excited about listening to that audio now. It just moved up high on my priority list. And just 1 second, Andrew, before I hand things over to you, I just want to confirm that Rana's the only one that knew what we were going to talk about other than me. Was there something you wanted to add to the conversation, Rana? Or are you just enjoying?
I'll add after our friends add.
Okay.
I am so enjoying listening. There's a bit of a story, so
All
please
right.
continue. Thank you.
Okay. Andrew.
Okay, thanks. I just thought I'd add my 2 cents. I totally agree with Richard. and Amy also, consciousness, is separate from knowledge. I think, the Course says perception and knowledge don't exist on the same level. When you have knowledge, none of this world will be aware, you'll be aware of any of this. You'll just know. But when you have perception, you don't know anything. And consciousness, I believe, is the first step of the separation. And then the consciousness itself has unlimited levels, but they all have to do with perception. That's how I understand the Course. I've studied consciousness a little bit by looking up the definition of terms and various things, because I was curious about that. And that's my understanding. That's really all I have to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Barbie.
Hey, I was in a real good place for about 2 or 3 days. I mean, things came up and I was able to handle them. And then all of a sudden, Sunday, I was in a good place. And then my husband asked me to look on Facebook because my son was supposed to send me pictures of my grandchildren, which he never does. And that upsets me because I only talk to my grandchildren now twice a year, but before we used to talk more often. So when I seen the Facebook pictures, I got really upset. I mean, I told my husband, I don't even want to see the pictures anymore. It was something struck a chord in me. And then I sat with it, and I had this sound healing experience that night. And afterwards, I became at peace with it. I don't know, my whole mind shifted, and it's like, I don't care if they don't call. I know they love me, but it's not going to bother me. And if my husband wants to see the pictures, I'll see the pictures because I know deep down, every time we talk to them, they know I love them and they love me. So why should it matter if I see pictures or not? That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you just for the demonstration again of feeling pain and choosing to allow this work to shift it within you. Yeah. Holding you in my heart. Rana's got her hand up.
Me also.
All
Hello,
right, Rana, it's
everyone.
all yours.
So what happened was is Cindy and I have been communicating via WhatsApp, and so she sent me that it was going to be Miracle Principle 48. And then underneath she said, just really the last paragraph. So I was like, okay. So a few hours later, I got my book out and I looked at the thing again. Oh, which number, right? I look at it and proceed to read 38 and just sat with 38. And then this morning, when she started this group and said 48, the mind said, that's 38. And the mind wanted me to write that in the chat, right? She's wrong. But there was a pause, right? You better chat. And I look and it's clearly 48. But what was noticed was there wasn't any guilt. There wasn't any feeling bad. There wasn't any beating myself up. That it didn't matter, right? So I read the last paragraph of 48. Okay, all caught up, ready to go. So now I'm just sinking back and listening, to the whole thing. And thank you for those the choices. And what I'm really feeling this morning is that there's a choice to see illusion with the Holy Spirit. There's a real choice there to use that bridge thought, and that allows the miracle, which is just the shift in perception. So I have two examples real quick. And in regards to what Amy shared, here, if there's a moment where I shift, where there's a shift into awareness, it becomes a wide lens. It becomes the seeing instead of looking at individual things. The intention to be awareness shifts into a very wide lens for me. And everything that is within this perception, I'm reminded is one thing. And I had the experience this weekend. We had 50 people at my house. We threw a wedding for my friend Lauren and her fiance, Paul. It was 50 of her friends and family. And it's a big deal, right? There was a lot of lists and planning and whatever. And I'm here to report that the feeling leading up to and including the actual event was so calm and peaceful on the inside here. And what I experienced Saturday was just like watching one thing going on, which was love. And what was included in that were all the activities, right? Dave made all the food. We're bringing out the food. I was asked to be the officiant, so I got to do the ceremony. I mean, all these really neat things. And all weekend long, I'm getting little messages from our friend Richard, who decided to go through the characteristics of the teachers of God last week on his Facebook page. So it was like each one of those, Richard, popped up on Saturday. There was a noticing of some judgment that the mind had about the DJ and the decorator prior to, right? And that was met with gratitude and forgiveness and kindness. You know, the action that was taken in the world was to make sure to go to those people and let them know how grateful I was for their participation in making the whole event so special, because the mind didn't know what was going on. So it went off without a hitch, and it was beautiful. The ego was fairly quiet that day. There is no ego, right? There's no being or entity called ego. So the thoughts that arose and fell that day were peaceful thoughts. There were still thoughts. And if they're not my thoughts, I just enjoyed the fortunate occasion of having peaceful thoughts. There was an enjoyment of that, you know. So then the whole event's over, everything's cleaned up, and Sunday rolls around and it hits me that Monday I'm starting a new class with Awakening Together. And the ego takes that and runs with it. You're not ready, you're not prepared, I don't want to do this part. Ew, I have to do a buddy assignment. Oh my God. And then, you know, the ego wakes me up at 3 a.m. and it wants to tell me I don't have time for one of the requirements. I mean, just so interesting to watch and to have the ability again to widen the lens and remember, these are not my thoughts. It's just what's happening. And to have a sense of humor about it. And so as soon as I got up this morning and did the first task for the homework for this first day of 6 weeks, it was like, But the mind wants to tell me, I'm not prepared, I'm not ready. You need to do something to be ready. And that's a lie. And so I'm so grateful for looking at this. I saw that neurotic that neuroticism between the wedding event and the small event of beginning a darn class. It's so interesting, the chaos, like Andrew said, that gets created in the mind with these thoughts that are not mine, and so therefore I am not guilty. It's really kind of cool to see it. Thank you for allowing me to share.
It is very cool, and it's very cool that we just spent an hour together. Seemed more like 10 minutes, but it was an hour. I love us very much. Tomorrow it's training wheels at 9:30 Eastern, and 12 stepping at noon. I love us all very, very much. Thank you so much for being here. Now I want to go read Miracle Principle number 38. Anybody else? I'm excited to see what it'll do. Okay, I'm gonna hit the stop record.
Have fun watching Guy Finley.